inherently tyrannical.
Yeah. Okay, so we agree in that way. If this is, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page. You're saying like, as a white man, I don't want to be assumed my beliefs or anything about me because I'm a white man.
Yeah, but I also don't want.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay, yeah. Let's go with that.
Okay, so I agree with you. I don't want people to assume things of me because I am a woman. What happens, though, is that we make assumptions. There's stereotypes that exist, and every person is conditioned with bias and prejudice, and that's fine. Like, it's not like it's fine. It's a part of our world, our worldview. So I guess my challenge to that would be to say, well, if we can acknowledge that it exists and it gets treated down from generation to generation, then in order to have activism that people understand, you would form it into groups and identity. Now, you and I do agree, though. We went from, hey, my group over here needs some rights and stuff. Is that fine? To, if you are not a part of this group, you are literally against us and you are a bad person. That is illogical. There's nothing objectively factual.
I don't agree with that.
You don't think the left does that?
Rights. No, the left do that, but the way you're formulating that, no group needs rights. The people who make up the groups need rights, and this is why I think that we should return to interest politics. Sorry? Okay.
Well, before you explain that, could you just tell me what a country would look like with a law on the books that kept we acknowledge that children shouldn't be considered adults till they're 18 for the most part in America. But children as a group get rights and people as adults get rights, but you don't want them to be identified that way, or does that work? Is that okay?
Children as individuals have rights. Children as individuals have rights. The group that is children don't have rights.
That's not how America works.
I think it is.
But it isn't. You can think that, but it isn't.
I don't know. How is it different?
So, because the way we create law, when we're making legislation, we form it based off of a group. This group needs to be protected. This group within these parameters needs to be protected.
No, but that's not always true. I mean, like, for example, like a speeding fine, speed limits aren't group based. There isn't a group of people who are speeders who go really fast down motorways. They're not a group of people. That's an action that anyone can take. And so you're creating a universal law that's for everyone. And that's how just laws are created. And yeah, there are exceptions. Certain things are only applicable to children or to adults because of the fundamental nature of human biology and the necessity that's created by that. But we agree that there's no necessity created on homosexuality, being black, gay, whatever, any of the other like arbitrary characteristics in being female. So there's no reason to create a law that would specifically target women or gays or blacks. And so you don't have group identity in your law. You have universal laws.
But we don't, because the gay thing is a great example. It's not that men and women or humans are being denied marriage. It's that two people who follow this category, which is then homosexuality, gets rejected. A group gets rejected. I don't understand why that's not. I'm sorry?
That's no longer in the case in the US, is it?
For now.
Well, do you think that's going to be rolled back?
There are people who are actively working for it. And if honestly, like if Trump is going to take away Planned Parenthoods and defunding for pro-choice rights, I don't see why it wouldn't be wrong to assume he would cater to those people who are anti-gay marriage, who are still primarily religious, and the majority is religious.
I don't think he's going to do that. I really don't think he's going to do that.
You know what? And honestly, like maybe he won't, maybe he will. He already talked about trans not being applicable for the military just for being trans. As a group, he denied them. Not individual trans people, but as a group, he denied them rights. Yeah. So I want to stay away from that. I would like there to be, but right now, in order to function as a
let's stop there, because this is another thing I find that left-wing people do is they tend to define a right as whatever they're holding in the front of their mind at that time. You don't have a right to join the military. Okay, you don't have a right to join the military. You might have a duty to join the military. You might have an opportunity to join the military. You don't have a right to join the military. And we agreed on that.
So yes, we can agree on that. But trans people were allowed to join, did join, and then got kicked out after. So they changed the rules. That's not a right,
is it? Yeah, but that's not a right, is it?
But they had a right when they first enlisted, and they had a contract, and their contract
they didn't have a right. That wasn't a right. No one has a right to join the military.
So maybe we're defining rights differently. Rights are just things that I think the culture has deemed acceptable. I don't think they're inherent. There's no God.
Yeah, there is no God. Even if there's no God, that doesn't mean they're not inherent.
what is okay? So let me just Britney's philosophy in life.
The easiest way to define what a right is to do a thought experiment. Put a man on an island. What can he do? What can't he do? They're his rights.
Slow down.
Within,
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
Okay, he's back.
Yeah, so...
Okay, he's back.
Yeah, sorry, it's probably my internet connection. I'm really sorry. But
that's okay. No problem.
A right is just what you can do without infringing on someone else's personal rights themselves. So, I mean, for example, I like being free speech absolutists. I don't think that anything I say is capable of damaging your rights. And I'm sure you don't think that anything you say can damage my rights, which is why we're both free speech absolutists, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's because it's something inherent to you. It's an inherent way that you can act without infringing, without damaging someone else, and that shouldn't be restrained. And this is why, for example, I do think that people should have the right to be able to to get married, to have homosexual marriage, things like this. These are things that two people can innately do that there would otherwise be no hindrance to. But I mean, you don't have a right to join a military, because then this is the whole problem I have with positive rights in the first place. If a military doesn't exist, what do you do about your right to join the military? You've got to create a military, don't you? I mean, it's silly.
If we can just work within the realm of what is real. So the United States had a military in place. People were allowed to join who were trans. They joined. They had a contract saying you were in the military for 4 to 6 years or 10 years or 20, whatever. Yes. And then the president goes on Twitter and insinuates that they're going to do this thing they haven't done yet, but they're looking into doing it. How is he not violating
I'm aware
the contract?
Of what he did.
Right. So my question is, Britney's philosophy is that we are just little specks, right? We came to be, we have consciousness, and that's beautiful. But the only way we are able to do the things we do is based off our understanding of what culture we were raised in. So rights inherent, it's just whoever's more powerful really gets to decide the legality of your ability as a free person. We are not completely free. We will never have a free society. We will have an understanding that these are group laws we've put together to protect us as a whole and to make us efficient. Right?
Hang on. Let me stop you there, because what you're doing there is legitimizing the tyrannical regime that your parents fled from. Rights are inherent to human beings. This is liberal philosophy 101, and this is where we draw the distinction between free societies and non-free societies. This is why we consider these societies to be worse than our own, because they do suppress people's rights. And this is why we are surely human rights activists, to protect the rights of people who are being oppressed in our own societies. And you saying, well, rights are only what the person in power gives you, that's just tyranny. That's just a justification of tyranny, and saying, right, I mean, that means there's no justification to end slavery with that line of logic.
So in order for me to kind of communicate this philosophy, it would be, so there's the ethical realm, which we should all live in. And then there's the realm of, do we want just power? If humans just want power, there are plenty of unethical ways to do that. There are also plenty of ethical ways to make it so many people have power. So if we're talking about I'm not sure, because I don't believe in any, that we're special, I suppose, that I'm not sure that we have the right to technically, I'm not sure that you can say that humans as animals, because I think we're animals, have an inherent right to breathe, except that we decided as intellectuals we should have the right to believe or breathe. But we had to make that decision. The decision had to be consciously made. Do you know what I mean? So if you don't know that.
Okay, what you're saying there is that animals don't have an inherent right to life, and I think they do.
Well, I
think the people have personally. Because
sorry, I'm sorry.
This is the thing, right? It's like
what?
Well, okay, so I mean, for them not to have the right to be able to breathe, someone would have to stop them from breathing.
Right.
So if they were on their own in a state of nature, they would have the right to breathe, and no one would be able to take that away from them.
Right. So maybe it's just the words I'm using. I do agree that we have basic rights based on what's accessible to us. But those things have to be accessible to you. So if he lived on an island, he would have the right to then be whoever he wanted to be on that island, unless that island was already occupied. Then he'd have to probably understand the structure of which he's been brought into.
You believe in positive rights. That's what you believe. There's a negative rights of freedom from, positive rights of freedom to. As in, you,
yes,
you
I guess
you
so.
should have a right. Right. Okay. But again, that's contingent on a contextual situation. So if there is no military, then you don't have the right to join it. Then you don't actually have that right. So what you're actually referring to wasn't a right; it was a privilege. Because a right is something inherent to you. I mean, that's why they defined it that way in your constitution.
I'm going to be completely different. I don't really understand the difference. If there's an island or a military, it's the same thing for me. Either society tells me I can join or I have to act a certain way, but society makes those rules up. Trans people aren't inherently, they don't have the right to serve, but they were told under the law that they could, and then they were denied that access afterwards.
Okay,
so I don't understand.
Right, it was an ability. It was just open to trans people.
But they qualify. I'm saying they qualify.
Yeah, because of the criteria that you already laid out. But if you change the criteria, then they don't qualify. For example, I don't qualify to join the NBA because I'm only 5'9" and I'm not very athletic. I don't have a right to join the NBA, even though the NBA exists. And even if 10 years ago the NBA was like, yeah, we're gonna take average height, fat neckbeards, then if they change that, then I don't have the choice to.
Right. So trans people do not have the right, unless it was accessible to them to join, unless they qualify. Now, if they want to change the system, they can say that. If somebody who was 5'9" wanted to join the NBA, then change the rules. But there are rules in place for a reason.
Yeah. It's still not a right. It's just an ability. It's a privilege.
I don't understand how existence doesn't operate under that way either. Then. Because we form communities, we form laws. I guess I'm a little lost on how humans in general, we don't have like a right we don't have a right to choose if we're born, right? So then we're born and we're here and we have to accept the fact that we exist. And then you have to accept the fact that you exist within certain understandings of culture, depending on where you're born. And then in America, you're told that if you want things, you have to advocate for it. So people went and said, hey, I want a right or a privilege of being a part of this particular activity. And that's what they're doing. So we agree on that, right? I'm on the same page.
Absolutely,
I haven't lost anybody.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But the problem with using the term right is that it actually has a specific philosophical definition. It means something. It's genuinely important. And this is something that the left does all the time, is just exchange the word right for the word ability. And your abilities aren't always constant and they're not inalienable. So you have...
So let me retract my statement, because we obviously do agree. I just may be using the wrong terminology.
I know I sound like I'm getting hung up on the semantics, but the thing is, as soon as you actually drill down to the specifics, and this is why I asked you what your definition of oppression was, because it was way broader than any definition of oppression I'd be content to use. And as soon as we both understand the underpinnings of what we're saying, suddenly a lot of the things that have been built upon these kind of misconceptions just fall away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I do think we're on the same page. I will say this is my first time doing this, by the way. I've never really been on a back and forth with someone.
You're doing most of the conversations very well.
Thank you. Most of the conversations I have do last many, many hours because we do get hooked up on semantics. And I do think that's the problem with communication. And so we just went back and forth for 5 minutes on something that we actually are probably on the same page on. It took me a second to get the same language. So if we could broil it down to, I guess, that point. Sorry, my cat really wants to sit on my lap right now. But if we can have this issue here, then I assume it's going to happen in the greater sphere of understanding and conversation. So what I'm just trying to do is offer people an ability to kind of dissect and then come to a better understanding and compromise when we interact. So I would love to live in a free country where individuals really do matter. I would love that. I don't have a better method of getting there except by promoting underrepresented people to have voices, and without disparaging the majority. I do not advocate or promote the negative wording towards white people as a whole. That's ridiculous. But I do want to say that I do think that there is a lot of valid concern for minorities who need opportunity, and this is how they think they need to get it, because everyone else has been telling them for years, you're not going to get it any other way. So they're trying to be loud and proud about it. I mean, I can't really fault them for really wanting rights.
Okay.
Privileges, I guess.
Okay. Is Oprah Winfrey a minority?
Yes.
Is she underprivileged?
No longer.
No longer.
No, she's the first made female billionaire on television, right?
Sure. So why are you advocating for Oprah Winfrey?
Oh, so something that, from my limited understanding,